All right, hey everybody. My car was in for repairs earlier this week, and the dealer gave me a loaner car, a BMW X1, and I'd never driven one before. So I thought it would be fun to do a little mini review of my thoughts on the car. So I want to talk about the exterior, the interior, and just what the experience was like and whether or not I give it a thumbs up or not. So the X1 is BMW's entry-level SUV. It's their smallest SUV, and it starts in the $30,000 range, about mid-30s. The one that I was in had literally almost every single option you can spec out, so it actually stickered at $47,000, which is a lot of money for a small SUV. It was very nice, but it's a lot of money to ask. So exterior. The first thing I want to point out is that mine was in an awesome blue color. It was part of the M Sport package, which had a different front end and some blacked out window trim and different wheels, and it looked sharp. I love the exterior of the X1. I think that the designers did an awesome job. You know, it's just really sort of classically handsome. It's almost a simple design, and I think it'll age really well. Like a lot of BMWs, just the exterior design was on point. It was fantastic. A little bit about the interior. The first thing I noticed when I got in the car is how fantastic the stitching is. There is blue stitching on everything in here. It's on the seats, it's on the center console here, it's on the armrest. You can see it on the door there and there. It's on the back seats. The stitching is phenomenal. I love the stitching. I'm a big fan of stitching. So stitching everywhere. I know that's saying stitching a lot, but I'm really excited about it. That's my favorite thing about the inside. Beyond that, I was actually a little surprised to see that this one is spec'd with the wood trim, but I think it looks really great, actually. It's really refined looking. I think some of the other options are things like aluminum, and aluminum's fine, but this definitely adds a level of sophistication that I really dig. Things take a little bit of a downward spiral from there. I'm not a big fan of a couple other things. The first thing I want to point out is that it uses piano black trim for the aircon controls, and you also have a little bit of it down here with the parking brake and everything. And piano black is just one of those things where it's impossible to keep clean. You know, I picked this car up this morning, and it was obviously cleaned by the dealer before I got it. You can already see dust and other stuff, and fingerprints just show up really well. I'm glad that they don't use it on a lot of the interior, but it is still disappointing that it's really on anything. The other thing I wanted to call out is the steering wheel. The steering wheel is covered in leather, and it feels pretty good to the touch, but I was a little disappointed that the stitching here is just black stitching, especially since this is the M steering wheel that comes with the M Sport package. The stitching on my car, our proper M cars, has the tricolor BMW logo on the stitching, so I was a little disappointed that they just used black for this. That reminds me, going back to the stitching, they even weave in the tricolor for the M logo on the seats, which is just super cool. The seats themselves are pretty comfortable. The inside is actually really spacious, and you have this really great sunroof across, which is pretty cool. I had people in the back seats earlier today, and they said it was super comfortable, so I think the space is pretty good. But overall, I think BMW did a pretty good job. I'm not as in love with the interior as I am with the exterior. I think it looks just really awesome on the outside. The rest of the interior is just, I don't know, it's perfectly functional. I think the materials are super nice, but the design could maybe use a little bit of an update. Some of this stuff is starting to look a little bit dated, but overall, I'd say a solid job. People will be happy with the interior, again, especially if they love stitching. I wanted to make sure I got a shot or two of the interior in a bit of a darker place, just because I think BMW did a really cool job with the ambient lighting in this car. You can see along the door you have this really great, very sleek lighting, and it's also down the center on the driver's side. I think that this kind of stuff is just really cool, and I know a lot of cars have ambient lighting today, my car included, but I think it's really just an easy way for automakers to make the interior of their cars just feel a little bit more special. And I also just really love the traditional amber lighting that BMW does on their non-M cars. It's much more amber in real life than it is on the video here, but it's just one of those things where it's just a little bit different and just really cool. Now, one thing I did want to note that's actually a little bit ergonomically unpleasant about this car is the cup holder situation. You can even see, so this is more or less my eyesight. You can see how far away the cup holders are. This is me extending my arm all the way. I'm not a giant, but I'm also not a short person. The cup holders, for whatever reason, are super deep. This is me sitting full back, and you can see that my hand rests, you know, on the gear lever the way you would expect it to. I don't know why the cup holders are so far away. So before I talk about the driving experience, some of you have probably concluded that this is not the X1 that I'm sitting in. This is my car. The loaner was not an expected thing to have happen, so I actually didn't have any of my video equipment with me that day. All I had was my phone. So unfortunately, I don't have video of me actually driving it, but I can still talk about what I thought that experience was like. And I'll start with what really worked. The first thing is the engine. So the X1 comes with the same 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder that's in a lot of BMWs these days. Produces somewhere around 230 horsepower, somewhere around 260 foot-pounds of torque. And for city driving, it was actually an excellent engine. The thing about turbocharged engines is you get so much low in torque that getting off the line, like away from a stoplight or a stop sign, it's just so effortless and so easy. And from that experience, it was actually really positive driving around town because it felt like it had plenty of grunt to get up to speed quickly. There were a couple things that were a little bit more disappointing. The biggest one is that while it had a lot of low-end grunt and grunt at low speeds, I felt like once you were at speed, the engine was a little bit underpowered. Now again, my car has twice the power, so I know it's not a fair comparison, but if you're on the highway, say going 60 or 65 and you want to overtake somebody and go up to 75 or 80, I felt like the engine actually struggled just a little bit. Really, the one drawback of the X1 is in driver involvement, and this was something that was actually pretty disappointing. So things like handling. I know that it's a crossover / SUV. I know that the seating height is a lot higher. Even then, I felt like the car had so much body roll in turns, and just the electronic steering was just not communicating any real feedback to me as a driver. And that was disappointing for really two reasons. The first one is that it's a BMW, for God's sakes, right? What happened to the ultimate driving machine? I realize this isn't their sports car, but I kind of expect that every BMW is going to have a certain level of driver involvement and driver focus, and I really didn't feel that in this car. And it was made even more disappointing by number two, and that is that this one was spec'd with the M Sport package. I mean, the steering wheel had an M logo on it, for God's sake, like in your face, this is BMW's Motorsport. So the combination of those two things, it's just really disappointing that the dynamics really weren't there. That said, I feel like a lot of people who buy cars like this aren't really necessarily looking for driver involvement. That's not high on the list. They want something that looks really good, that has a good amount of storage or space, is relatively fuel efficient, and can get them from A to B. And on all of those fronts, the X1 is a great car. It's really just in that driver involvement where I feel like it falls flat. So if that's more important for you, it's just one thing to know it was a little disappointing about this car. So overall, the X1 is a cool car. I can see why BMW sells so many of them. It was the first time I had been in one. I was pleasantly surprised by the majority of that experience. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this was informative, even if it wasn't quite up to the same standard since I didn't have all of my camera equipment. And for those of you who are more interested in videos focused on the M cars, my car, I have a couple ideas coming out in the next few weeks that'll focus my car, so stay tuned for that. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I hope you guys take it easy.